There are several ways you can order your ideas within a paragraph. This video will explain one of those ways, time order. By the end of this video, you should be able to answer the following questions. What is time order? When should you use time order? How do you write using time order? And what does time order look like? So let's look at the first question. What is time order? Well, time order is simply chronological order. It's telling a sequence of events, like when you tell a story. So when should you use time order? Well, there are a lot of reasons you could use time order, but basically it's any time that you're telling something as a series of events or a series of steps. For example, you would use time order to tell a story, or to talk about an event, or a series of events. You would also use time order to tell about an important memory, or to give somebody directions, like a recipe. So how do you write using time order? Well, just like any time we sit down to complete a writing task, the first step is in pre-writing. And if you remember, pre-writing is just taking time to generate your ideas before you write. If you know you're going to be using time order for your topic, you can think about the time order as you're pre-writing to make the drafting stage easier. As you're pre-writing, you want to think of the events, steps, or actions it is that you will be describing. And you want to keep asking yourself, what happens next, or what step comes next? You might find it helpful to pre-write each event or step separately to generate more details about each event or step before you start drafting. When you reach the drafting phase, you need to use transitions. Transitions are words or phrases that connect two ideas, sentences, or paragraphs. They help your writing flow more smoothly. When you're using time order, there are certain transitions that help indicate that you are telling a series of events. This helps your reader follow along, and it also helps you as the writer identify when you're talking about the next event or step. Some examples of transitions in time order are first, second, and third, next, then, and last, before, after, until, soon, now, meanwhile, when, as long as, and from time to time. There's also eventually or ultimately, and whenever and straight away. So now that we have looked at what time order is, when you should use it, and how to write with it, let's look at an example of a paragraph written in time order. As I read, I will highlight the transitions that are used to help us identify how this writer applied time order to the paragraph. I had several frightening experiences on my first night in Tokyo. Well, that's our topic sentence, so we know that the rest of the paragraph will tell us what those frightening experiences are. The first scary thing happened before I walked into the airport. Even though I have traveled extensively before, I have always been able to read the signs. This time was different. When I looked around the airport, I realized that I couldn't even tell where to go because I could not understand any of the signs. So that was the first frightening experience in Tokyo, arriving to the airport and not being able to read the language on any of the printed signs. Then the paragraph continues with the second frightening experience. When I finally got through customs, I took a huge bus to the downtown airport. On the way, I saw many soldiers carrying rifles, and it made me nervous. So the second frightening experience was the bus ride. The transitions when, finally, and on the way help us identify that we're using time order. The paragraph continues with another transition to help us identify the third frightening experience. When the bus finally arrived at the downtown airport, I had to look for a taxi. Because it was now very late, there were only a few around. Finally, I found one and gave the driver written directions to the convent where I would be staying. The driver looked angry, and I became uneasy again. The transitions when, finally, now, late, tell us that we're talking about a series of events. And our third frightening experience is the taxi ride. Then the paragraph continues with the fourth frightening experience. An hour later, we arrived at the convent. The driver took my bags to the door and knocked loudly, but no one answered. He said something to me in Japanese, which of course I didn't understand. Then he pointed to a telephone nearby and to my purse. I opened it and gave him some money. I waited nervously while he made a call. A few moments later, he took me back to the door of the convent where Sister Suzanne was now waiting. Her friendly face made me forget the bad experiences I had that night. Because of the frequent use of transitions in this paragraph, the reader can tell that we're reading about a series of events. The transitions also help us identify which experience or which event, frightening experience, starts and when it ends, and when we move on to the next frightening experience. So this is what time order looks like. As you write with time order, remember to include transitions to help guide your reader through your series of events or steps.